Good afternoon and welcome to the final edition of Friday Focus. Although it is a short week due to Thanksgiving break, we decided to make time before we take off our Thanksgiving break to do this show, so you'll be seeing it on Friday. I figured that you'd want to see our beautiful faces one last time, and I say faces because Dan's got the ugliest shirt I've ever seen in my life wearing today.
Make up for it with my face, Shane.
Once again, we are joined with Dan Harmsen, Stella Liang, and I am Shane Jackson. Like we do every week, we are going to break down the upcoming matchup this week. KU takes on K-State, an in-state rival. But before we do that, let's recap a little bit about OU like we do every week. And Dan, you got the luxury of going to this record-breaking day down in OU.
Luxury?
Yeah, I'd say
Okay.
luxury. You saw a really good player play.
That's right.
Not necessarily in the Jayhawks uniform. Although it was a 44-7 loss for KU, what do you take away from that game?
Well, a week ago, Melvin Gordon broke the record against Nebraska, as you guys know. Didn't last very long, unfortunately. Samaje Perine really was unchallenged all day long. He just had holes that were gaping to work with. Kansas's defense got really pushed around. And Kansas actually outpassed Oklahoma in the game, but it didn't really matter because there were a lot of drop balls and the quarterbacks couldn't really get things going. So not a good day for Kansas, but put it past you. You got this last game against Kansas State to look forward to, and I think we should see some better things this week.
And it's interesting you say that because Kansas was coming off probably its best performance of the year in a very close game with TCU, then number 4 TCU, really took them down to the wire. But as we've noticed here in the past year, it was at home, and they play much better at home. Stella, you explained it a little bit in your call, and can you explain it here? Why does KU just play just so much worse on the road?
I think it starts with the passing game that became, kind of non-existent on Saturday. You can blame the weather conditions, but, Oklahoma, as you saw, had a plan. They went with the power running game, and KU never had the plan to, that worked. And I think that on the road for KU, everything just kind of snowballs. The opposing team scores one touchdown, they score another touchdown, and then by the end of the night, the running back scoring 5. And so I think they never recover, and they never they kind of don't move on from the next play, and it just keeps on snowballing. Whereas at home, they have that support and they have that hope. But then on the road, Cummings just doesn't look as efficient, and the offense just doesn't work as well.
At the beginning of the game, to your point, the KU players were egging on the Oklahoma students. There weren't many because it was a really rainy game and kind of crappy weather. But
KU knows that personally.
Yeah. But you're talking about the snowball thing. As Perine's day went on and he kept gaining yards, he had this 66-yard touchdown to start the second half. You could definitely feel the emotion in the stadium, cheering him to his record, and Kansas just wilting as that was going on. And so, yeah, I definitely agree with you on that point.
Moving on to this week, KU's got a tough matchup once again on the road with their in-state rival K-State. Clint Bowen talked about it in Tuesday's press conference about the importance of this rivalry. Just how important is it for this coaching staff and these players, Dan?
Well, they better think that it's important because I still think there's a little mixed feelings towards K-State because Missouri seemed to be the biggest rivalry for the longest time, but that's not a rivalry anymore. They left the conference, so Kansas has got to realize that this is your rivalry right now, and you got to take them seriously because K-State has always played the Jayhawks like it's their Super Bowl, and so Kansas should do the same. Rivalry, KU leads it by about 24 games. It's kind of disputed, but of late, K-State's really had Kansas's number.
Another thing I thought Clint Bowen brought up, in the press conference, he made a special thanks at the end of his press conference to a bunch of people like Dr. Zanger, this coaching staff, the players, everybody that's really involved, and he wanted to make it known that this was about the football team and not necessarily him. So whether he is named the head coach or not, next week or whenever it may be in the future, it really is about this program. I just want to get your opinion, Stella, on what you took away from his comments at the end of the press conference, probably his final press conference as the interim head coach.
Well, as you mentioned, if he comes back, he'll have the head coach, the interim coach label will be removed, and if he's gone, well, he's gone. And I think that in that statement, you kind of have to like the guy more, and you can truly see his passion for Kansas. And I think that he wants whatever is best for the team and the program moving forward, and that's what I took away most from it, that he doesn't want to be, what's most talked about. He wants whatever works to make the program shine and not himself.
I think it's becoming kind of more the one of the most overused cliches when talking about Clint Bowen is really he bleeds this program, but it really is true. He really does care. As he played with KU back in his day, and also had to deal with all these rivalries like the K-State and Missouri. And, you can really tell he cares about this program. Let's just talk about the strategic side of this, this matchup this week. K-State overall, what do they bring to the table, Stella?
They bring efficiency. When they get to the red zone, I think they're like 45 out of 51 times scoring. And, their quarterback, Jake Waters, he is just efficient. He has a 62.52% completion rate. They do not make a lot of mistakes. They are a well-coached team under Bill Snyder, and I think that's what makes them work. They work as a team, and they're efficient.
And it's also nice because, as we discussed in the Tuesday press conferences, that this is a red zone defense by KU. I mean, they really step up when it comes to red zone. They really take it personally, is what Clint Bowen says. And I think it's funny that, it always is a saying that Bill Snyder coach teams, so they don't make mistakes. But you see every time someone starts to say something like that, like you saw in the Auburn game, they make mistakes. So I think this team is still very capable of making mistakes. KU has to come ready to play. They have to come with that mindset that they can compete with these guys. They belong on the field with K-State. Talk about one player personally for you, Dan, that to watch out for on the K-State side.
I'll give you one on each side of the ball. Ryan Mueller, Devontae Fields for TCU came in as the newcomer, or the Big 12 Player of the Year. But he got suspended and he was kicked off the team. So Ryan Mueller is the best defensive player in the Big 12 right now. He has a tackle for loss in each of the past 4 games or so. So he's definitely a guy to worry about, because last week Kansas struggled defending a rush from Oklahoma, and they couldn't really get the ground game going. So they'll need to do that this week. The offensive side of the football, obviously Tyler Lockett, it seems like he's always open. I don't know about you guys, but he's great at getting separation. He runs really crisp routes. And then obviously their quarterback, Jake Waters, he's a threat to run the ball. And Bowen was talking about the pass-run conflict that they have. If you guys remember last year, Kansas was in the game. They turned the ball over 6 times. So again, with the efficiency that K-State brings. But they'll bring the quarterback up to the line of scrimmage, and then they'll send the tight end deep. It looks like the quarterback's going to run it, but then he drops and throws it to a wide-open tight end. So they've got a very difficult task to face in this K-State offense for KU.
And because I know this is the last week and you guys are very trained at this by doing this by now, I'm going to catch you guys off guard here a little bit with a blank question here. Kansas will win if blank.
Want to take this one first, Dan?
Well, it starts with protecting the football, because last year, you talk about the talent on each team, and K-State, they're so fundamental is what they are, and they execute, 11 of the players executes their assignment to perfection. I mean, you're not going to beat them by them beating themselves. You're going to have to make plays, and so Kansas, you cannot afford to hurt yourself, shoot yourself in the foot by turning the ball over. So I think it starts there. And also you're going to need Michael Cummings to get things going again in a ground game that averages more than half a yard per rush that they got last week. So again, some of the things that you saw against TCU, Mundine, King, you're going to need those plays. And then defensively, Ja'Cory Shepherd, I think he's a good matchup, as good a matchup as you're going to see in the Big 12 for Tyler Lockett. So defensively, you got to stop the rushing attack and rely on your cornerbacks to make some plays.
For me, I think you have to go back to one of the earlier points we talked about, and I think that KU will win if they play like they do at home. They just look more efficient, and they kind of have that hope that they can win and that they can, play with the best of them. And K-State really is one of the best teams in the Big 12, so they just can't let themselves get down on the road.
My blank is Kansas will win if Tyler Lockett doesn't show up. I think Kansas is going to have a very tough time diminishing Tyler Lockett's role on Saturday. If they can do that, if they can maintain him, I think Kansas has a good shot, because as we've talked all year, this defense is a strong suit. I do like to see, if it is going to happen, Ja'Cory Shepherd versus Tyler Lockett, because I think that is a great matchup for both sides. I do like that. But at the same time, I think Tyler Lockett is a very tough guy to guard, and I don't think Kansas will be able to maintain him. What's your guys' final score prediction?
I've got K-State winning 31-20. I think the Kansas offense can get things going a little bit. I thought that these last 8 quarters before the Oklahoma game was probably a better representation of the Kansas offense than the Oklahoma game was. So I think the offense will get things gelling a little bit. But Kansas State, just at home on senior day, it's a lot to ask for out of Bowen, but I think he's going to put out a performance that's respectable enough to have his name in the hat to get that interim tag removed.
I also think KU will play better, but ultimately I think that K-State at home is going to win 35-17. I think that Bill Snyder's team, they have a lot on the line going into a matchup with Baylor next weekend, and I think that for them they kind of see this as a must-win before they get to that game, and I just think that KU doesn't have as much practice winning on the road.
I completely agree with everything you guys said. That's why I don't think it's going to be very close. I think because this is K-State Senior Day and how important this game is for them, you know, in the playoff standings or the Big 12 Conference Championship standings, I think they're going to come ready to play. This team is already very motivated to play Kansas. I think they're extra motivated in this game. I do think Clint Bowen has already done enough to earn his job next week or whenever they do decide that. So I don't think necessarily it comes down to this week, but I don't think it's going to be that close. I think K-State wins 42-10.
One last thought, Baylor and TCU and K-State, they only have one loss in the conference right now. But if you look at point differential, that's one of the stats that a lot of people look at. Baylor and TCU are well over 200 in terms of they've scored that many more points than their opponent. K-State's only 142, so they're definitely a good team, but I just don't see Kansas getting blown off the field this weekend.
And that's going to do it for our last edition of Friday Focus. For Dan Harmson and Stella Liang, I'm Shane Jackson. Thank you for watching. Enjoy your weekend and rock chalk.